A rapper once wrote his celebrity crush a letter from prison, begging her to visit him, warning her that people around her weren't as honorable as they seemed. 1 year before he was shot dead, that letter sold for over $100,000, and it's just one entry in hip-hop's longest-running pattern, the crush that never turns off. Tupac and Madonna, Eminem's 20-year war with Christina Aguilera, Drake, who couldn't stop writing about Rihanna a decade after she moved on, Kanye, who waited almost 10 years to be with Kim Kardashian, and later said he regretted it out loud. These aren't small crushes. These are obsessions with receipts. Hip-hop has always turned desire into art. A crush becomes a verse. A rejection becomes a diss track. A breakup becomes a platinum album. That's normal. Artists process life through music. But somewhere between shooting your shot and shooting a diss track 20 years later, something shifts. The line between romantic persistence and outright fixation gets blurry. And fame makes it worse, because these men and women get to keep the object of their obsession in the headlines forever. So how far did it go? Let's start with the letter that started this video. Two of the biggest icons of the 90s dated in total secret, and almost nobody knew. Until 15 years later, Tupac Shakur and Madonna were briefly involved in the early 90s, but they kept it so quiet that the world only found out in 2015. When Madonna finally addressed it in a radio interview with Howard Stern, she revealed the relationship had been real and that it explained a strange, hostile appearance she'd made on David Letterman's show back in 1994. Here's where it turns emotional. In January 1995, while Tupac was sitting in a New York prison on a sexual assault conviction, he sat down and wrote Madonna a 3-page letter by hand. In it, he apologized for ending things so abruptly. He admitted, in his own words, that fear of how it would look for a young black man in his position to be with a famous white woman had shaped his decision more than his actual feelings did. He also warned her to be careful, saying the people around her weren't all as trustworthy as they seemed. A year later, Tupac was shot dead in Las Vegas at 25 years old. Madonna tried to block that letter from ever being sold at auction. She lost in 2017. It went up for public bidding with a starting price of $100,000. Was it love, guilt, or a warning about something Tupac already sensed coming? We may never fully know, but he's not the only rapper whose crush turned into something that outlasted the relationship itself. One offhand comment on MTV turned into a feud that lasted almost 2 decades. Back in 1999, a teenage Christina Aguilera appeared on an MTV special and made comments suggesting Eminem's marriage to his girlfriend Kim had been rushed and immature. Eminem didn't let it go quietly. On his breakout 2000 hit, he fired back at Aguilera by name, mocking her for going public with his personal life on television. He didn't stop there. 2 years later, he took another shot at her on a track with Redman. Then, almost 2 decades after the original comment, in 2018, he brought her up again on an 11-minute freestyle. This time while she was a mother of 2. It was thirsty then. It's thirsty now, Aguilera finally said, addressing it directly on Watch What Happens Live in 2019, calling the whole thing exactly what it looked like: a grown man chasing a 20-year-old grudge for attention. 20 years, multiple songs, one comment. If that's what a single offhand remark can trigger, imagine what happens when the crush is real and it's returned. He got engaged to her, had a son with her, and almost a decade later, he still can't stop bringing up her marriage. Future and Shura met in 2012, got engaged in 2013, and welcomed their son together in 2014. Then it fell apart the same year, amid rumors that Future had cheated. Shura didn't stay quiet for long. Her 2015 single I Bet was widely read as a direct message to him about moving on to someone better. Shura found that someone in NFL quarterback Russell Wilson. They married in 2016. Future never fully let it go. In 2019, he told Beats One that Wilson simply does whatever Shura tells him to, and made it clear the resentment hadn't faded. Shura clapped back on social media with a simple 2-word post: "Rise above. It hurts, and it hurts your pride." Shura later admitted in an interview about that period, Then, nearly a decade after the breakup, Future was still taking direct shots at Russell Wilson by name on a brand new song. Not a subliminal, not a subtweet, a direct diss almost 10 years later. Shura has since spoken about how much she cried through that period, describing it as one of the hardest stretches of her life before she rebuilt herself. But if you think a decade-long grudge is extreme, wait until you hear how long this next one lasted. Here's the thing, every story so far has one thing in common. None of these men could fully move on once the cameras were rolling. And the next one didn't just involve subliminal shots. It got physical. 3 years after they broke up, these two exes were caught on camera screaming at each other in a Los Angeles parking lot. Meek Mill and Nicki Minaj dated for about 2 years before splitting at the start of 2017. For a while, it looked like a normal celebrity breakup, a few subliminal lines here and there, nothing unusual. Then, in 2019, Nicki performed Barbie Dreams live and added new, unreleased bars aimed directly at Meek, hinting she was holding back secrets out of restraint. Meek fired back on Twitter, telling her to leave him alone. It escalated again in February 2019 when Nicki dropped a freestyle over Meek and Drake's own song, rapping about his legal troubles and how much she'd supported him through them. By January 2020, things boiled over in person. Nicki, her husband Kenneth Petty, and Meek got into a heated, filmed confrontation at a retail store in West Hollywood. Weeks later, it moved to Twitter and got ugly fast. "You beat your own sister and taped it," Nicki wrote. Meek accused Nicki of defending serious allegations against her own brother. Nicki accused Meek of abuse. 3 years after the relationship ended, they were still tearing each other apart in public, in real time, for millions to watch. A crush that started as two rappers falling for each other in the spotlight, ending as one of hip-hop's messiest public breakdowns. But not every obsession ends in a shouting match. Some end in a wedding ring nobody saw coming. This one actually worked out, but it took 7 years. Back in 2015, Yo Gotti rapped about having a crush on Angela Simmons on his hit Down in the DM. While she was engaged to someone else, he brought her up in his music again 2 years later. Then, in December 2022, the two finally went public as a couple, with Gotti captioning a photo that he hadn't lost the crush since high school. A crush that started in a verse became a real relationship 7 years later. Proof that not every one of these stories ends in disaster, but the next one is the biggest, longest, and most public of them all. He wanted her for almost 10 years before they ever got together, and once he finally had her, he later admitted he regretted the entire thing. Kanye West and Kim Kardashian first crossed paths in the early 2000s, and by 2010 Kanye was already rapping openly about having feelings for her, while she was dating someone else. It took until 2012 for them to actually become a couple. They got engaged in 2013 and married in Italy in 2014, going on to have 4 children together. For years, they were the most photographed couple on the planet. Then it started cracking in public, culminating in a chaotic 2020 presidential campaign rally where Kanye broke down discussing deeply personal family matters live on stage. Kim filed for divorce in February 2021. It was finalized in September 2022. He was larger than life, Kim later said, reflecting on their early relationship. She has since described their marriage privately as far harder than it looked from the outside, at one point saying nobody in her life ever checked in to ask if she was okay. Kanye, for his part, has continued to publicly express regret over how their custody situation turned out. A crush he waited a decade to act on, a marriage the whole world watched, and an ending neither of them seems fully at peace with, even now. Across every one of these stories, the public reaction followed the same pattern: fascination first, exhaustion later. Fans defended Tupac's letter as proof of real vulnerability behind the gangster image, while others saw it as evidence he sensed his own death coming. Christina Aguilera made it clear in her own words that she'd simply grown tired of the attention. "Don't date 50 Cent. Don't date no damn rappers," actress Vivica Fox said decades after briefly dating him back in 2003. And 50 Cent responded within hours with a joking Instagram post referencing the comment. More than 20 years after their split, They're still trading public jabs like it happened last week. The pattern is impossible to ignore at this point. Here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of it. Fame doesn't cure obsession, it funds it. A regular person who can't move on from a crush writes it in a journal nobody reads. A famous rapper writes it into a song that streams 100 million times. The attention that comes back, the headlines, the fan reactions, the relived moment, can end up reinforcing the exact behavior that should have faded with time. That's why some of these stories, like Gotti and Angela Simmons, end in a real relationship built patiently over years, and why others, like Meek and Nicki, end in a parking lot shouting match 3 years after it was supposedly over. The crush isn't the problem. What these men and women do with it, publicly, repeatedly, for years, that's the real story. From a prison letter to a decade-long grudge to a wedding that took 10 years to happen, hip-hop's biggest crushes rarely stay simple. Some turn into marriages, some turn into feuds that outlive the relationship by 20 years, and some, like Tupac's, turn into the last real thing a man ever wrote before he was gone. So which one of these surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. And if you want the next one, where we rank hip-hop's messiest exes, from petty to unhinged, make sure you're subscribed, because that one's coming next.